on the signal processing using MATLAB. Of course, these same set of codes can be used in Octave also for processing of signals and their visualization. So basically, we will focus on the Fourier transforms, use of Fourier transforms, and especially using it for the frequency analysis of signals. At the end, we will try to do some time frequency analysis also if we get time. So first thing is that so about let's say we will start with a harmonic, or I'll say the sine wave, and see basically what it means. If really a sine wave is a sine wave or not, or it contains a single frequency sine wave is really single frequency or not, and whether see whether it contains more than one frequency. If so, why it is so, and then we will try to decompose the input signal into its constituent frequencies and see which frequencies are present and what is the effect of doing a windowing or a filtering process on the signal. So basically this is also valid for, so we might be doing it for one-dimensional signals, time-based signals maybe, but this is equally valid for 2D signals, that means maybe images, or even 3D signals that I am saying it's images with multiple channels. So it is valid for all these things. Okay, anyway, so what I've plotted here is basically a sine wave. So your equation, so I've tried to write the equation here. So that is nothing but V0 sine 2 pi f t. Of course, V0 can be voltage, it can be electric field, it can be anything, it can be just a displacement of a particle in time also. So, and the amplitude is 1, so that I haven't given any unit to that because it can represent anything. And in this case, this is your f is the frequency is 25 hertz, so it oscillates, it moves up and down 25 times in a second, and the total time range for which it is sampled, the image is acquired, or sorry, the signal is acquired is 25 is 1 second. Just a second. सुभाष मैं क्लास में हूँ, ठीक है, फोन करता हूँ. So the total number of samples, so you are going from 0 to 1 second, and in this case I am using a total 10,000 samples from 0 to 1 second. I'll come to that sampling a little bit later. So the interval between two time points here, let's say T1 and T2 here, is 0.1 millisecond, that is 1 by 10,000. It is definitely from this equation, your delta t is nothing but t by n. So your delta t is the sampling, you will call it as the sampling interval in signals. Now, why you need a sampling interval? The signals, in fact, we think of the signals as continuous. We don't know really it is continuous or not, in fact, the signals that we acquire, because when we acquire the signals, it is no longer continuous because you can't what you can say, you can't detect or sample all the points on the signal. For example, this blue line, the continuous blue line is your continuous signal, let's say. So this is your continuous signal. This is your signal that is continuous. And your detector basically takes samples at all these red points. So in between these 2 points, let's say this is T prime and T double prime, there are no samples available. So basically it is the drawback of your detector. So your detector is not fast enough to sample all the points. Of course, to sample all the points, you should have a detector with a 0 dead time. So that is not possible anyway. Such detectors are not available. So it's basically sampling a continuous signal into a continuous what you can say signal continuously is impossible because of the sampling time of the detector. Your sampling interval cannot be zero. If it is zero, then only you can sample your continuous signal and exactly reproduce it. So the signals you see are basically samples. So this is like your in statistics, it's like your population and samples. So population is all the values and samples are randomly selected from the population. It's like this. And in the case of signals also. So you might have a continuous signal, but when you sample it, when you detect it, it becomes discontinuous. So what you basically sample or the detector output is something like this. So this is the detector output. So they are discontinuous. Even though you draw it in a straight line, that is basically a discontinuous output. You don't have any signal between two time points. So between delta t, you don't have any signal. If you want to sample a continuous signal into a continuous output, then your delta t2 should be equal to 0. So that is not possible practically. So whatever you do, the fastest detector you use, your output, your detector output is going to be discontinuous. I hope this is clear. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so your the fastness of your detector determines how close these two time points are in your detector output. Of course, if faster the detector, more the samples you have in a unit time. For example, in 1 second, you will have more number of samples. So processing more number of samples require more memory, more what you can say, computational power, etc. So anyway, so that is a different issue. Okay, so this is the detector, this is the sample, this is the detector output you are going to see. So this is a signal you are seeing. So your signal you are seeing is always going to be discrete. Okay, even though you draw a straight line in your plots for a signal, for a sinusoidal wave that is detected by maybe a photodiode, really speaking, it is going to be discrete. And that discreteness is decided by the sampling interval that you use. So that is decided by the sampling interval time of the detector. Now let us go to something called sampling frequency. So you have two frequencies. In fact, when you talk about detecting, you have two frequencies. One is the signal frequency. So that is the frequency of the input signal, and other is the sampling frequency, the frequency at which it is sampled. So that is basically decided by the detector. Clear? Now, your sampling frequency is the number of times. So I have given the definitions here anyway. So the sampling frequency is the number of times a signal is measured in a second, right? For example, you have a signal of, let's say, 5,000 or let's say 1 kilohertz. And if your sampling frequency is 100 hertz, so your signal is sampled only 100 times in a second, whereas your real input frequency is oscillating 1,000 times in a second. So there is going to be some issue there. Of course, the other way around. For example, if your signal frequency is 100 hertz and your sampling frequency is 1,000 hertz, so it is sampled 1,000 times in a second, whereas your signal is varying only 100 times in a second. There it's going to be okay. So we will talk about it a little bit. The sampling criteria we will talk. Okay. Your sampling frequency is, of course, is nothing but inverse of your sampling interval. We already talked about sampling interval. So your sampling frequency is nothing but inverse of your sampling interval. Do I have to explain these things? I think this is clear, right? I think this is clear. Just a second. Jigar bhai. Good morning. Good morning. नहीं वो दूसरा जो क्राइटेरिया ना उसका है, उसके अंदर तो सही है. हाँ ओवरऑल है वो, दो जो मतलब कैपिटल प्लस वो दूसरा वाला. तो कोई इशू नहीं, कोई इशू नहीं. वो है हमारे पास है वो आंकड़ा है ना, आपके पास यही हो चीज, चिंता नहीं. कोई इशू है वो तो उसके अंदर से डाल देंगे. ठीक है, हो जाएगा, चिंता नहीं. Sorry about that. Okay. So your sampling frequency is nothing but the measure of the closeness of two time points. Of course, the higher the sampling frequency, lower is delta t. So higher sampling frequency you use, two time points will be closer. So if you are, if let's say this is sampling frequency, हमने कितना use किया था इधर? Sampling frequency is 10 kilohertz. If we make it 20 kilohertz, the time points will become exactly half. So then the time frequency will be this thing will be like this. Is it clear? Am I making any sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I need sometimes I need inputs, otherwise I can't go ahead. So I need inputs to go for going ahead. So okay, anyway. So you are higher the sampling frequency, more the signal data you are measuring. So the signal content will be more if your sampling frequency is high. Okay. Okay, for example, I have tried to give an example here. For example, a sensor at 30 milliseconds, working at 30 milliseconds. So the sampling interval is 30 milliseconds, has higher sampling frequency compared to at 60 milliseconds. 60 milliseconds is the detector working at sampling interval of 60 milliseconds will have half the sampling frequency compared to a detector working at with a sampling interval of 30 milliseconds. Okay, the same thing is valid for your cameras also. Of course, instead of time, your sampling interval is measured in terms of space. For example, if the pixel size, so instead of, you can just replace your delta t by delta x. Delta x is the pixel size in x direction. So for example, your array is like this. This sampling theorem is valid everywhere, wherever you do a detector. So this is your delta x, your delta t. This is your delta t. This is your delta x. Okay. So where delta x is the distance between two detected points. No? So this is the two detected points, or you can just say that this is between these two also. It's the same thing. This delta x is this delta x. Okay, your sampling frequency is nothing but 1 by delta x. Instead of 1 by delta t, it is 1 by delta x. It's in space, so it doesn't matter whether it is in time or space. The things we talk holds for both signals in time and as well as signal in space. So the measured, so sampling frequency is the, so here the sample is the how close two points are. So smaller delta x, higher is the sampling frequency. That means the points are closer. For example, I have just given an example. For example, a camera with 1.4 micrometer pixel size has higher sampling frequency compared to a camera with 2.2 micrometer pixel size. Both are 1.4 as well as 2.2 pixel size camera. Cell phone cameras are available. So the one with 1.4 micron pixel size will have a higher sampling frequency compared to that of a 2.2 micron pixel size. Now even we have less than 1 micron pixel size cameras. Okay. So your f sample, in this case, your f sample is nothing but the smallness of the pixel. So there the f sample is was in the case of time, f sample is the smallness of the time interval. Here the smallest of the pixel or the two time space points. Do you have any questions till so far?
Participants, anybody wants to ask something till now?
In fact, you can stop me at any time and ask questions. So I forgot to tell you that yesterday. Okay,
Sir,
I'll go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine. So let's go ahead. So now, so for example, you have a you have a signal. So in fact, it is better to show it. Let's say that it's better if I draw that thing. Let's say you have a sinusoidal signal. You have sine wave. It's equally valid in any other shape also. You have a sine wave. So this is 0. Okay, so this is in time. So this is voltage as a function of time, let's say. And you are sampling once every cycle. So this cycle you have sampled here. Next cycle you have sampled here. I think I should add one more this thing here. this your T. And third cycle you are sampled here. Now, what is the measured frequency of this signal? So I am sampling once every cycle. So what's the measured frequency? So to any curve that is passing through these points, these green points, according to us, is the signal. Correct? Yes or no? Any curve, for example, so what I mean by that is that, let me draw a curve. Okay, so this one. So that basically comprises all these points, right? So this can be a solution, right, for the sampling. Or this can also be a solution, right? Or okay, this can also be a solution. So any of these things I have drawn, of course, there can be infinite solutions, are a solution because all these curves or all these waveforms basically goes through the sampled points. Correct? Right? So this is called, this condition is called aliasing condition. So for example, if you look at I don't know whether you have done it or not, look at a fan that is basically rotating at a very high frequency in the presence of an incandescent bulb. Incandescent bulb basically switches off and on 100 times in a second. Right? Every time your sine wave crosses zero, it switches off. Of course, you can put a photodiode in front of an incandescent bulb and connect it to an oscilloscope. You can see this thing. It is switching off and switching off, on and off. So your sampling frequency is 100 times a second, and if your rotation frequency is maybe like a 500 times in a second, then you might be able to see, sometimes you have detected that you are seeing the fan rotating in the opposite direction at a lower frequency. Have you seen that? I don't know how many have observed that. So that is due to your under sampling. Your sampling frequency, if the sampling frequency is less than or equal to the signal frequency, the correct frequency is not detected. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the next best thing is to sample at least twice in a cycle. So if you sample twice in a cycle, try to basically represent a sine wave. Doesn't matter, it's a sine wave. It could have been a square also, it could have been a triangular, it could have been a random this thing also. So now I am sampling twice in a cycle. So now there can be only one frequency or only one curve that passes through all these points. No? So that is exactly equal to the frequency of the signal. So in this case, we are sampling it twice in a cycle. So your sampling frequency, I'll write x f sample is equal to twice. So this red is your signal. Twice the frequency of the signal, right? Then the frequency of signal is measured correctly. Clear? So I have tried to show it here, right? So if your signal frequency is twice the sampling frequency, in fact, the condition is that if your sampling frequency is greater than or equal to twice the signal frequency, then you are correctly sampling the signal, at least frequency wise. Of course, the shape may not be available, because you can see here, instead of a sine wave, you are seeing a triangular wave, right? So if you want to even correctly measure the shape, you will increase the number of sampling points. That means you are increasing the sampling frequency, maybe 10 times in a cycle. So you will be able to see the shape better. So that is why this condition, if your sampling frequency is greater than or equal to twice the signal frequency, then your signal is sampled correctly. Is this clear? This is called as Nyquist sampling criteria, and this is true for, that's why I have written here, this is true for any signal. Any signal you would like to measure, your Nyquist sampling criteria should be satisfied. Otherwise, for the detector, otherwise, for example, if you want to sample a frequency at 100 hertz, and if you are a signal, if you want to sample a signal of 100 hertz, and if you are using a sampling frequency of 100 hertz, you will not be able to measure the signal. The sampling frequency should be at least 200 hertz. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's go ahead. So that is one of the things, whenever you see a signal, that is one of the things you should look for. You see a signal, okay, so suppose you want to, let's say you want to measure plasma oscillations in a tokamak. Maybe it is oscillating at, let's say 1200 hertz. So then, and you want to use visible light emitted by these plasma oscillations. So you should use a detector which is working at least at 2.4 kilohertz to see these oscillations. So it is pretty important when you design an experiment. So you should know what is the maximum frequency you want to measure. So once you fix the maximum frequency you want to measure, your sampling frequency should be twice the maximum frequency you would like to measure. That's it. Clear? Shall I go ahead?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So one of the things is that, so I have written here in bracket, that is very important, is that your sampled output is always going to be discrete. You can never have a continuous sampled output. You already know about that. Okay, so let's go ahead. Okay, so now this is basically like, yesterday we did this thing. So basically now I am creating a signal numerically, of course. I'm creating a signal. Of course, whenever you do create a signal numerically, it is always going to be discrete. Because you are going to give a delta t, and without a delta t, you cannot create signals on a computer. So it's always, whatever you simulate or whatever you create in a computer is always going to be a discrete signal. You can never have a continuous signal in a computer. Of course, computer itself is totally discrete, right? It works on zeros and it's always a discrete device. Okay, so basically what we are doing here is that you are supplying V0 is equal to 1. I'm fixing a frequency, F is equal to 25 hertz. Then you will have your number of sampling points is equal to 10,000. So, and your R is equal to 1. So R is the time range is equal to 1. So it goes from 0 to 1 seconds. And dt, the sampling interval, is R by N. Range divided by number of sampling points. So you create your time axis. That is nothing but I am using the function linspace from 0 to R, meant 0 to 1. And I can, of course, instead of this thing, I can just give N here, this thing. And V is equal to V0 sine 2 pi F into T. So, and then I can basically plot. So I have created a sinusoidal sine output of frequency 25 hertz. Right? I think I don't have, do I have to show it in MATLAB, this thing? It works. Yesterday we did that thing. So shall I go ahead?
Yes, sir. This is
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let us go to, so this is, so I have created this thing. Okay. Now the thing is that, so how many frequencies are present here? Only one frequency, right? So let me just, I hope you know about, because I don't have time to introduce to you Fourier series and Fourier, that is not possible in an hour. So that will be maybe like 6 to 8 hours it requires. So let's forget about that thing, introducing Fourier transforms. What your Fourier transform does is that it decomposes your signal into its constituent frequencies. Basically, it means that the Fourier theory assumes that of course, it can be non-periodic, especially in the case of Fourier transform, it is going to be non-periodic. Really speaking, any signal in this universe is non-periodic. Because, for example, let's say that you are using a function generator to create a square wave, right? So, or a sine wave. Let's see a sine wave. Let's talk about a sine wave. So you are basically using. Okay, so you are basically using a function generator to create a sine wave. Is it really a sine wave? Bolo? You're using a function generator and creating a sine wave. Of course, you can see that in your oscilloscope. So it looks sine, right? But your sine wave exists for a finite duration. Now, after you switch on your function generator, it starts. Once you switch off your function generator, it ends. So the duration of that sine wave you created is finite. Clear?
Yes.
So once you basically confine, so you are confining your sine wave. You are basically starting at, let's say, t is equal to 0 and ending at, let's say, t is equal to 10 seconds. You are confining your sine wave. It is equivalent to multiplying an infinitely long sine wave by a top hat function. So let me just draw it. So you have, let's say you have an infinitely long sine wave. Hello. Good morning, sir. कुछ नहीं है, सब सही है सर, डेटा सब सही है, अरे वो सब सही है सर, कोई इशू नहीं है ना सर, सभी है, तो खर्च किया हुआ है, उसको तो कुछ पता ही नहीं है ना सर. अदर देन एक मिनट सर, जस्ट गिव मी सेकंड. मैं आपको थोड़ी देर का कॉल करूं सर, एक क्लास में था मैं, हुआ नहीं, ठीक है. Okay, so you have an infinitely long sine wave. So this is your infinitely long sine wave, sine, cosine, it could be anything. It doesn't matter. Like, sine wave is of interest to us because your Fourier transform converts a signal into its constituent harmonic components. Harmonic components means sine and cosine. Now, if you are confining this thing, so basically, if you want to start at t is equal to 0, if this is, so infinitely long means t is equal to minus infinity. It starts from t is equal to minus infinity and goes up to t is equal to infinity. Of course, that is not possible, you already know, because we haven't reached t is equal to infinity. And if you are talking about the generation of the universe, it started t is equal to 0. So the signal might have started t is equal to 0, not t is equal to minus infinity. So anyway, that is a little bit philosophical also. So if I am confining it, let's say that I am confining the signal, let's say from here to here. So this is equivalent to multiplying the signal with a function like this, right? When you multiply this thing, your output looks, so I will not be exactly the same, but assume that it is the same, like this. Clear? It starts at t is equal to 0 and this thing. Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Sir, this means the rest of the part will be 0. We are multiplying by 0.
Yeah, absolutely. Rest becomes 0. So this is called as a top hat function. You can look it up. We don't have time to discuss about top hat. So this is like your aperture you use in your diffraction experiments. Top hat is like this. So in aperture is like this. It blocks here and it passes the signal only through this aperture. So in diffraction also this becomes really important. That is why you get that particular diffraction pattern. There also your Fourier theory holds. Anyway, so this is this is equivalent to an aperture. So this is equivalent to an aperture. So this is a top hat function. It's equivalent to an aperture. Is this clear?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Now the thing is that now we talk about your decomposition into its decomposing the signal into its harmonic components. Your Fourier transform exactly does that. It decomposes the input signal into its constituent components. Your Fourier series or your Fourier theorem says that your output signal is nothing but a sum of its harmonic components. So let's write, of course I am not writing the multiplicity constants. So let's say that n is equal to 0 to, you can of course write 0, 0, it doesn't matter because your 0 is already there. So we will write n is equal to 1 to infinity, your a n cos, since we are trying dealing in time, 2 pi f n into t plus the harmonic components also have sine this thing into infinity bn sine 2 pi f into n into t. Of course, this is in the discrete form. When you go to the continuous form, it becomes Fourier transform. So this is your Fourier series, but Fourier series is easier to visualize. When you go to your Fourier transforms, your f of t is nothing but integral of minus infinity to plus infinity. Then your, I'll just write your g of f, that is your amplitude e raised to I 2 pi f t df. Same thing. Only thing is that now now f is continuous. That's the only thing. Here your f is discrete. So 1f, 2f, 3f, etc. So I could have put n before the f. It doesn't matter. So n is a number, integer. Here your f is continuous. That's the only difference. It's equivalent. See here. So e raised to I 2 pi f t is nothing but cos 2 pi f t plus I sin 2 pi f t. So this comes back to this equation only. Clear?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So this is your Fourier series, and this thing is your Fourier transform.
Transform.
Okay, Fourier transform is basically valid for non-periodic signals. Now the thing is that the waveform I have shown here, is it periodic or non-periodic? This one, is it periodic or non-periodic?
Yes, it is periodic, sir, within this range.
Yeah, within this range, but outside the range you don't know what will happen, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So it is non-periodic,
Okay.
in that sense it is non-periodic, right?
Yes.
So only those signals which are infinitely long are periodic. Because you don't know what will happen. Let's say this is time t is equal to t prime and t is equal to t prime double prime. So within t prime and t double prime, you can say it is periodic. But before t prime and after t double prime, you don't know what was the signal. So you cannot say it is periodic, right? After that, you don't know whether it is going to repeat, whether the signal is frequency is going to change, whether the signal amplitude is going to change. You don't know. Clear?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So let's go ahead. So your Fourier transform is something like this. So this is an analogy. For example, you have a cake. I'll call it as cake space. And if I want to find the raw materials of that cake, so that is your decomposition, right? So you're decomposing into the raw material space. So it can be anything, all the raw materials. So this is equivalent to your signal. This is equivalent to your signal to its frequencies and its corresponding amplitudes, etc. So this is 1 hertz, 2 hertz, 3 hertz, 4 hertz, 5, 6, 7, 8, etc. So frequency in hertz. So this is an analogy like this. And so of course you can have an inverse decomposition like this. You take the first frequency of 1 hertz and plug it in this equation, right? And then add the second frequency amplitude for the second frequency, multiply it with that amplitude for that particular frequency, take the second frequency, plug it in the equation, multiply it with the amplitude for that particular frequency, sum them up, you are going to get the signal back, right? So that is your inverse decomposition. So it is equivalent to something like this. You are going from your raw material space. So you are going from your raw material space. That means your signal space to your, sorry, not raw material space is not signal space. Raw material space is your frequency space.
Discrete components.
Yeah, so you have your components, frequency and amplitude of that frequency, and then you sum them up, right? And you get your, did I draw a sinusoidal? Sinusoidal, it is not possible. So anyway, so I should just change the signal. This is anyway not sinusoidal. So I'll show something like this. This is the signal. And you're going from this to something like this. So this is your time versus signal or amplitude of with that time. So this is your, I'll just draw it here. Time versus amplitude at that particular time instance. Okay, so this is the analogy I'm saying from your signal space to your frequency space, and if that is your decomposition. So you can say that these frequencies are present. So for example, what you can do is that when you do an inverse decomposition, you just use these frequencies. A frequencies go 0 kar diya hai. You can do that thing and then do an inverse decomposition sum. Then you get maybe like only the lower frequencies. So it's like this. If you do it like this, you will get something like this. Clear? So this frequency you already know. It is a frequency space, right? So these components represent high frequencies. The components to the left represents the lower frequencies. Am I clear?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, so let me go ahead. Okay. Okay, now, so you just have to know that whether you have studied Fourier series, Fourier transforms, mostly you have gone through that thing. So let us not discuss about that. You know that what your Fourier series and Fourier transform does. Fourier series is basically used for periodic signals, or basically to make you understand about the Fourier theorem rather. In practical applications, you are always going to use Fourier transforms because any signal in this universe is non-periodic, and non-periodic signals, you don't know the frequency. So what do you mean by non-periodic signal is something like this. It's if you understand this thing, for example, to use your Fourier series, you should have a fundamental frequency of the signal. So this is the fundamental frequency of the signal. Let's say f0. F0 means this is the, if it is time, this is f0, this is t0 delta t, inverse is your fundamental frequency. So let's write f0 is equal to 1 by delta t. So this is your delta t. Okay. Now if I change the signal, now what happens? What is so that delta t? So I can just change the equation here inside f0 and f0. Okay. So your f0 is the fundamental frequency or the first harmonic. So in a signal like this, the second signal, what is f0? So this is the first one. The second one, what is f0 in the second signal?
I think it's just half the cycle
No,
as compared to the
No.
first one.
no. How can you say that thing? That's not possible, right? Because you don't have the repetition. Of course, the signal might be repeating just after the screen, but we don't know that thing. We have only acquired this much portion of the signal. So you don't know about the fundamental frequency. Okay. Once you don't know about the fundamental frequency, you have to use all the possible frequencies in the universe and see which frequency components fits the signal. Is it clear?
Okay.
So that is why you are using your Fourier transform. See, your frequencies goes from minus infinity to plus infinity. You are trying out all the possible frequencies in the universe. Of course, if your sampling is already known, then you don't have to go from minus infinity to plus infinity. You can go from bandwidth only up to the bandwidth of the signal. So that can be done. So that's a different issue. But theoretically speaking, you have to try out all the frequencies and see which frequency interacts or reacts with the signal and gives out a maximum.
Okay.
So that frequency is kept, and amplitude of that frequency is your amplitude that you will be using. Clear?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Even in your practical applications, so your integration is a continuous thing, right? But the thing is that even when you implement an integration in a computer, it is again basically going to be a discrete, right? You are going to restrict the if you remember that integration, let's say trapezoidal rule you might have seen. So you are basically converting your, let's say, curve into a ribbons. So the size of the ribbon will tend to 0. It can never be 0. So there also there is a discretization. So what you're going to use in computers is not directly the Fourier transform. What you're going to use, you're implementing is what you call as discrete time Fourier transform. DFT or DTFT. Clear?
Yes, I got it.
Okay. What I'm saying is too much. I can. So if you do you have any queries so far? Questions, discussions, suggestions?
No, sir.
Yes.
So it's clear, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, let's go ahead. Okay. So I have written it here. The sample signal is discrete. So we have to use discrete form of Fourier transform or discrete form of Fourier sine or cosine transform. I'll not discuss about Fourier sine and cosine transform. If what you can say is that if the signal is odd or even, so if the signal is odd, you can just use the sine part of your Fourier transform. If the signal is even, you have to use just the cosine part of your Fourier transform, because that is the only thing that is going to react and give you an output. I hope you know a little bit about these things, right?
Yes, we do.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. That's great. Good. Now I'll introduce a term that is called the bandwidth, that also you might be knowing, is the maximum detectable signal frequency using the detector sampling. Using a detector, F sampling frequency means, suppose if your signal is oscillating at the means has got a what you can say, let's say if you are how would I introduce that thing? Okay, if your signal has time variations of the order of, let's say, 1 millisecond. So your delta t for your signal is 1 millisecond. Then your signal frequency, F signal, is equal to 1 by 1 milliseconds. So that is 1 kilohertz, right? Now, even if your signal frequency is 1 kilohertz, if your F sample is equal to 1 kilohertz, then your maximum detectable signal frequency is how much? Of course, your signal frequency is 1 kilohertz, but you are using a sampling frequency of 1 kilohertz. Then what is the maximum detectable signal frequency? Tell me. What is the maximum detectable signal frequency? If your if sampling frequency is 1 kilohertz, what's the maximum detectable signal frequency? Bolo. You have just talked about it, right? It's 500 hertz, na? It's 500 hertz, right? Your signal frequency, according to Nyquist criteria, your sampling frequency should be twice the signal frequency, at least twice the signal frequency. And if your sampling frequency is 1 kilohertz, then the detectable signal frequency is only 500 hertz. So that is equivalent to half the sampling frequency, correct? Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So your bandwidth, so that is the maximum detectable signal frequency, is nothing but sampling frequency divided by 2. For example, if your sampling frequency is 1 kilohertz, the detectable signal frequency is 500 hertz. Clear? Shall I go ahead?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, number of points in the frequency spectrum is equal to number of points in the signal. For example, if the frequency, if you are sampling it 10,000 times, so the number of points in the signal is 10,000. Then the frequency spectrum will also have 10,000 points. Am I clear? Because you are just going from your time space to frequency space. Number of points in time space is equal to number of points in the frequency space. In time space, your x-axis is t. In frequency space, your x-axis is your frequency. So in time space, the spacing you will call as delta t, and in frequency space, the spacing is your delta f, or frequency resolution. Clear?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now one of the properties of Fourier transform is that it is circularly symmetric. Means if frequency hundreds give you the same, 100 give you the signal, then minus 100 can also give you the same signal, right? So if frequencies 100 and 200 together gives you the signal, then frequencies at minus 100 and minus 200 hertz will also give you the same signal. Clear? You can try that thing out. In fact, you can use MATLAB and see that. Just create two signals with v is equal to v0 sine 2 pi 100 into t plus v0, let's say 1 into sine 2 pi 200 into t. So you plot that thing. Then create another signal, sum of minus, instead of plus 100, you put minus 100. Just a second. Hello. किस चीज के लिए? केवाईसी की बात कर रहे हैं? Okay. So एक काम कर सकते हैं. I'm in a class. Can you call me after maybe an hour? Okay, चलिए, thank you. Okay, sorry. Okay. So that is why. So it is called circularly symmetric. So basically, what I want to show is that. So let me just try to draw it if possible. What I mean by that. Slide. Of course, I just want to say that. Okay, this one of the things I forgot to tell you is that this term is called this is the DC part of the signal. So DC part means any signal will have an average value, no? So that is the DC part. Is it clear?
Yes, sir, yes.
Okay. So when you draw, let's say that you are decomposing a signal. Let's say this is your signal into its spectrum, into its constituent frequencies. So this is the average value, let's say. So you will have the magnitude of the average value at the center. So we will call it as zero frequency. Then let's say that you have an amplitude frequency that is present at, let's say, 10 hertz, and let's say 20 hertz and 30 hertz. So frequency in hertz. So let's say that's amplitude here, here, and here. Then your circular symmetry says that of your Fourier transform, you will have the same thing as minus 10 hertz, minus 20, minus 30. And minus 30. So this is your DC, and these are called your side bands. Okay, it is circularism. If you look at an image, so that's a 2D Fourier transform. You will always have a DC part. If you have a frequency maximum here, you will have a frequency maximum here. If you have a frequency maximum here, you are going to have a frequency maximum. Sorry. You have a frequency maximum here, you're going to have a frequency maximum exactly circularly, diametrically opposite here. If you are going to have a frequency maximum here, you are going to have something like this. So you can use 1/2 of the spectrum to reconstruct the signal. So this goes from, your output goes from, your frequency goes from 0 to plus bandwidth and 0 to minus bandwidth. So for example, as I told, the sampling frequency is 1000 hertz. So this bandwidth will be, if f sample is equal to 1000 hertz, so this goes to 500 hertz, and this goes to minus 500 hertz. You can see here the total is 1000 hertz. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you have to keep this in. So I'm going a little bit fast because I want to show you the outputs also, how it is done. Okay, So this is what I've shown here, the circular shift. So there are 24 points in the sample. There will be 24 points in the frequency domain also. So it goes from minus bandwidth to plus bandwidth. This is the maximum detectable signal frequency, and minus maximum detectable. And this is, if this is delta t, this is delta f, and your delta f is the frequency interval, or interval in the frequency space. Now for your frequency space, delta f and delta t are related. So I'll just go a little bit fast here. So your delta f is nothing but, so you are at 2 into f maximum, or you can just say that it is nothing but 1 by capital T. Capital T is the total time for which, or time for which, or it can be space also, for which the signal is acquired. So for example, if you acquire for 1 second, then your delta f, that is 1 by 1 second, that is 1 hertz. If you acquire for 10 seconds, your delta f, the spacing in your frequency domain will be 0.1 hertz. So you will have better frequency resolution if you acquire the signal for more time. Right? Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do I have to explain these terms? I don't think so. Do I have to explain these terms?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, let's go ahead. Now, I'm using MATLAB and computing the Fourier transforms. So what I am doing is that, so I didn't put delta t here. In fact, there is going to be dt up here. Huh? So there is going to be dt here. Let's say your dt. So I have to put dt. Let's say dt is equal to, delta t is equal to 1 into 10 raised to minus 3. So that is written as 1e raised to 1e minus 3. So that is, your dt is equal to 1 millisecond. So 1 millisecond, then you can have your frequency space. So I calculate the range. So range is nothing but minus f max to plus max. F max you already know, because that's 1 by delta t. So minus f max to plus f max, and then you calculate the function that is used to calculate Fourier transform in MATLAB or in Octave is FFT. FFT is basically short form for fast Fourier transform. So that is an algorithm. It's an algorithm to compute Fourier transform of an input. How it works, we don't have time to discuss those things. So you can get in any basic signal processing book, you can get how a fast Fourier transform algorithm works, how it computes the signal frequencies, different harmonic components. Okay, so what you have to do is this thing. But only thing is that when you compute a Fourier transform, the thing is that, so I told you your Fourier transform is circularly symmetric. So for example, you have a signal, let's say you have a sinusoidal signal of 100 hertz, and your sampling frequency is, let's say, 200 hertz. What in the output, what you get is one thing. So when you do it, so this is your frequency, and what you are going to get is, so your zero frequency is here, and this goes from, so this will be bandwidth by 2. Usually it is plotted in MATLAB like this, bandwidth by 2. So it is one maximum will come at 100 hertz. So let's say that this is 100 hertz and this is 900. So basically one maximum will come up at 100 hertz and there is nothing, and the next one is at 900 hertz, because circularly symmetric, right? This is circularly symmetric. So this is where the band shifts from positive to negative. So this is visualizing, this is slightly difficult. So it's better if this part, this is the DC part, comes to the center. So for that, you have to use the function FFT shift in MATLAB. So that is what is being done here. Where is it? Where have I used? Yeah, here it is. So what I am doing is that after computing the FFT, I am basically shifting the DC part to the center. If I use FFT shift, what I get is that your DC comes to the center, and then you have your plus 100 hertz here and your minus 100 hertz here. Am I clear?
Yes, I got it.
Okay. So now, basically, it's something like this. So I'm using 25 hertz, signal of 20 sine wave of 25 hertz. and I'm using 10,000 sampling points in 1 second. So your sampling interval is 0.1 millisecond. So 10,000 kilohertz, 10,000 kilohertz. So the bandwidth is from, so now your bandwidth is from minus 5,000 hertz to plus 5,000 hertz. Na? F sampling by 2 to F, so this is F sample by 2 minus F sample by 2 to plus F sample by 2. Clear? And since I have shifted it, so this is your 0 and this is your 25 hertz. So you can see here, since there is a DC part is 0. So why there is no DC part? Because mean value is 0. Na? If it's a pure sine, the mean value is 0. So that is why there is no DC part here. DC is equal to 0. Since mean is equal to 0. If you don't have any mean value, DC part is equal to 0. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, so basically, this is nothing but a zoomed in version of the upper plot. Upper plot I have shown because to show you the entire band from minus 5,000 to plus 5,000. So below you can see, so this is at minus 25 hertz. You can see that thing. This is at plus 25 hertz. Okay. One of the things you should note is that it is not, it should have been a straight line here, na? A single line. Line matlab width is equal to 0. But now, so it goes basically, you can see components from maybe like 24 hertz to 26 hertz with the peak at 25 hertz.
24.
Clear? So there is a broadening of the line. Clear? Ideally, you are expecting just a line like this. You are expecting line. You are expecting a line here. You are expecting this line. But instead of the line, what you are getting is a broadened line. Clear? You get what I am saying so far. So I'll explain why it is so. So you
Yes,
are
sir,
expecting you are expecting a single
Just a
line.
straight line. Yeah.
Or you can in fact line nahi bolna hai. It's a point here. Instead of a point, you are getting multiple points here because these are nothing but points. The lines is we are drawing the line for our convenience. They are just a discrete value on a chair. This should have been just a discrete value, a point here. Instead of a point, you are getting multiple points. Clear? Instead of a single point, you are getting instead of a single point at 25 hertz, we are getting multiple points.
Yes, sir. That we got it.
So that should not have been there. So let us see why it happens. So the thing is that, so when you are talking about so the first plot is a sinusoidal wave at 100 hertz. This is basically a sine wave at 100 hertz. So this is a sine wave at 100 hertz. Just a second, give me just a second. Sorry. Okay, so this is what you are expecting, right? This is what you are expecting. So for example, this is a sinusoidal signal at 100 hertz. This is what you expect. Let me do one thing. Let me do before that, let me just try to run some codes for you. कहाँ गया? MATLAB कहाँ है? Okay, so this is again, so this is basically the same thing. So I have shown you the same code or slightly different. So I'll send you these codes, not an issue. So if you, when you run it, so what you are getting is something like this. So I have used a signal of 100 hertz. So created a time frame. So f0 is the frequency. Then I am creating the signal. Signal is represented by s, that is sine 2 pi f0 into t. Then I am calculating the dt. So dt is equal to t1 minus the end of the second part of t. So I am calculating dt. From the signal itself, I am calculating t. It means from this thing, I am calculating dt. So t1 minus the length of t divided by t. So the number of time points. So that I'll get dt. Then the maximum, f maximum is equal to 1 by dt, that you already know. And then you basically calculate the Fourier transform, that is f of t of s. And then what you do is that you shift the DC part to the center. And you are, of course, here there is an absolute value here, because you are using absolute value. Your Fourier transform, you already know that is e raised to I 2 pi ft. So it is going to be an array of complex numbers. So complex numbers has got real and imaginary part. Usually when you talk about Fourier spectrum, you are always talking about either the amplitude or the power spectrum, usually the power spectrum. So the power spectrum is nothing but the absolute of your number, complex number square. So that is why this is absolute of your complex number square. So your energy is the absolute square and amplitude is your absolute. So that is why this absolute is calculated, and then you plot the spectrum. So it is basically coming out 100 hertz and 100 hertz. Clear? Is this clear? Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now let's do one more thing. Let's run it for different frequencies and see the spectrum. So I'm running from f0 is equal to 10 to 100 hertz and see how the spectrum looks. So it's going to be like a movie. So the first plot is the signal. So I have also displayed the frequency on the top of the signal, and the plot on the bottom is basically the bottom panel represents the frequency spectrum. So you can see as the frequency increases, frequency of the signal increases, sinusoidal signal. Of course, it's a confined sinusoidal signal. As the frequency increases, the spectrum shifts outwards. Exactly, it gives you the exact frequency component of the signal. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now let us go to example 2, example 3. This is for a chirp signal. Okay, and this also. Now, basically, what I am creating here is what you call as a non-stationary signal. You're usually, so let me introduce a small concept. It's called stationary and non-stationary signals. Do you know about stationary and non-stationary signals? Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Stationary functions.
No, in the case of signals. In the case of functions, what do you mean by stationary function? Tell me.
Is confined within 2 points, overlapping between 2 fixed points.
No, I can't derive from that thing. I cannot explain this. Okay, fine. So your stationary signal is a signal which contains all the component frequencies at all times. And a non-stationary signal is a signal which contains different frequencies at different times. So for example, this is a non-stationary signal. See, the signal that is shown on the upper panel is a non-stationary signal. You have lower frequencies initially, and then the frequencies increases as you go, but as time increases. Clear? Is it
Yes,
clear?
sir. This is different. Yeah.
Yeah, is this clear? The stationary signal and non-stationary signal, I hope it is clear. The stationary signals will have all the frequencies at all time points, whereas non-stationary signals will have different frequencies at different time points. For example, a seismic shock or a seismic data that is detected is non-stationary. It will have different frequencies at different times. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Just
So this is
once again, sir.
So what I'm saying is that your stationary signal is a signal which will contain all the component frequencies at all time points, and a non-stationary signal, or for in this case, is a chirp signal. This is called a chirp signal. A non-stationary signal is a signal which contains different frequencies at different time points.
So here in this case, both of this, they are containing having different frequencies, it seems, at different
No,
times.
the top panel. You have to look at the top panel. Now you have different frequencies. See here, till 0.2 seconds, you have low frequencies. Let's say 0.2 and 0.4. As you go towards the right, your frequency increases, right?
Yes.
So that is a
Lower
non-stationary
part,
signal.
in lower part also between plus 50 to minus 50, we are having different frequencies.
No. That is the frequency spectrum. Just look at the top panel, the top
Okay.
figure. So that's the signal, and the bottom is the frequency spectrum of the signal.
Okay.
So okay, I didn't label the axis. That's the issue. Okay. So the top figure is a signal that is called as a non-stationary signal, because you have different frequency components at different time points.
Okay.
And so that is called as a non-stationary signal. But in many of your cases, for example, as I told you, for an earthquake data, for example, will be mostly non-stationary. You will have different frequency component at different. It depends upon whether it's a primary shock, the secondary shock, or tertiary shock. Okay.
Yes.
So
Yes,
your earthquake data might be looking, your seismometer data might be looking like something like a non-stationary signal. So it is very important to identify which frequency is present at which time point. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, if you see the bottom plot, so that is basically the Fourier spectrum of the signal. The Fourier spectrum of the signal basically contains all the frequencies. It doesn't contain any time information. Right? There is no time information because you are using the entire signal for the Fourier transformation to find the frequencies. So do you get me so far?
Yes, sir. So far it is clear.
Great. So I'll come back to this a little bit later. So let me go ahead. Also don't remember what are the what is accepted example 4. This is sliding. So let us keep it here. So I'll come back to that a little bit later. So let's go back here. Now, the top plot, so on the left hand side is a sinusoidal signal of 100 Hertz. Now, the second plot, so this is your first signal, this is your second signal. Your second signal is nothing but a rectangular function. So top hat. So this is your top hat I have already shown you, right? Or a rectangular function. Of course, this is what you use. So in MATLAB, if you use RECT 0.05, second, you will not write 0.5, then you will get a rectangular function. Fine. So this is the MATLAB function I am using. So in fact, that will be there in the code I'll send you. Here it is. So I can rectangular pulse this thing. So that can be. I'll send you with the code anyway. I'll send you the code. Okay. So this is a top hat function or a rectangular function. See the spectrum. So this is the spectrum. So this is FFT. We'll give you this one. The FFT of the rectangular pulse. See the FFT of the rectangular pulse. Now the FFT of the rectangular pulse is usually a sinc. So this power spectrum is sinc square of, let's say, in this case, it's time. Sinc is basically, let's say, sinc of x is equal to sin x by x, and will have is equal to 1 at x is equal to 0. You might have gone through these things. You know about sync X, right? SI and CX. Yes or no?
No, sir. Sync we haven't seen it
Sync,
before.
not an issue, not an issue. It doesn't matter. Sync of X is nothing but in some text it will be written as sin pi x by pi x or sin x by x is your sync of X. But when X is equal to
Okay.
0, this blows up. But if you do an integration, you will know that it is 1 at X is equal to 0. That you can do. Do integration by parts and do a L'Hopital rule. You can arrive at the solution. I'm not going to do that
Okay.
anymore.
Yes.
So this is the
Yes,
sync
yes.
square because this is the absolute of this thing. So this is an absolute value. This is also absolute value. So sync function, if you plot, usually it looks, I'll try to plot it here. Your sync function looks something like this. So at every pi, it comes to 0. And it goes between negative and positive value. So this is pi. This will be 2 pi, 3 pi, etc. And this is same on the other side also. When I do an absolute square of that, all the negatives will become positive. So that is why this thing. So this is pi. Don't look at the value of this thing. So that value pi in frequency. So this is 2 pi, etc. Clear?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Now look at the sync function. Sync function is broad, no? And that sync function arises because of the rectangular pulse. Now, if you multiply this sync function, if you multiply this rectangular function with the signal, when you multiply this thing, you are going to get something like this. That's a third plot. So that is nothing but your signal multiplied by the rectangular function. So this one. Did you get it? So this is equivalent to the infinitely long sine wave I've talked about. Like this. Clear?
Yes, sir. So basically, broadening is happening because of that.
Yeah, broadening is
rectangular
happening
function.
because of confining your signal. That's what I want to tell. So now see the spectrum. The cumulative spectrum is nothing but you have these two lines, these 2 points due to the sine function, and you have the broadening due to the rectangular function. The Fourier spectrum of it is nothing but a sync function. Clear?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So,
Got
but
it.
if the size of the rectangular function is broader, right, then this width of the frequency spectrum will be smaller. Larger the rectangular function, in fact, you can use MATLAB and see. I don't know if I haven't segregated those. I might have it somewhere. Just a second. Just a second. I don't have it here. Let me just see. Just a second. Rectangular pulse window. This is not for chirp, right? I think this is the one. Okay, close solve. Let me run this thing. No, not this one. Not this one. This is with the sine wave, right? Because you are creating S. G is your rectangular pulse. S is your, okay, I've already created S here as a sine, so that won't work. 5, let me see. 75. So this is not the one. In fact, there I had it somewhere. In fact, I don't remember where is it. Okay, anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay, just so I want to show you that thing also, how the as you broaden your width of your rectangular or your top hat, the spectrum gets narrower and narrower. Anyway, so that you can try out yourself. In fact, I'll send you the codes. Okay, now let us go to a signal. So now it's a slightly more complex signal. Instead of a sine wave, I am having 3 sine waves. I'm adding 3 sine waves. One is 5. Your f is 100 hertz. So I'm taking one is 1 ft, 2 ft, and 4 ft. So this is basically 400 hertz. So here it is 400 hertz. Here it is 200 hertz. Here it is 100 hertz. Okay, so this is the signal. And I take a Fourier transform, of course. I should get the peaks at your 100 hertz. Sorry, your... okay. No, this is not for 100 hertz. This is 25. Sorry. This signal is 25. This is wrong. What I have written here is wrong. This is 25 hertz. So this is 25. 50, and 100. What I have written here is wrong. It's 25 hertz. Okay, so you will get a 25, 50, and 100 peaks. So that is quite naturally you getting those things. That is quite natural. Now, the thing is that now let me come back to the chip signal. This is what I want to stress. Did you get a feel of Fourier transform and how it works?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now let us go to what I call as the time frequency analysis. Okay, so when you do get a Fourier transform of the chirp signal, so this is the chirp signal or your non-stationary signal. So I've defined here all frequencies are present everywhere in the signal. Then it is time independent frequencies. Then it is a stationary signal. If the frequencies are time dependent, it is non-stationary signal or chip signal. So this is a spectrum. So if I am taking the whole signal together, this is a spectrum. So you get all the frequency components. So your frequency resolution or you are getting and your frequency resolution is highest because you are using the entire time interval. So your frequency resolution is highest. Now, what I want to do is that I want to analyze different frequencies present at different times. So let me just go to CD. TF analysis 1. TF analysis 1. So I've already used this thing. Okay, here it is. So what you do is that let us run this one first. I hope this is the one. What is happening? Oh, sorry, it's taking a long time. Just wait for a second. My laptop is slow. Okay. So let it run once and then we will talk about it. Just look at the spectrum. Okay. On that bottom, the bottom with the blue line is the spectrum. Okay, let's forget about this one first. So let us go back here. So the top one is the signal. The top panel is the signal. The second panel is the signal multiplied by a rectangular function. So that is the signal that is presently being sampled. And the third panel or the bottom figure is the spectrum of the second figure. Clear? Is it clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I'll again let us run it. Now, okay. Now, if you look at the top figure, what I'll do is that I'll freeze in between. Okay, then you'll know. नहीं नहीं देता हूँ चलो कोई बात नहीं what I'll do is that okay, so what basically you are doing is that you have a rectangular window here. You are multiplying the rectangular window with the signal. So now the presently signal is this much only. Clear? So basically you are seeing a smaller portion of the signal. So that is in the second panel. Now the spectrum looks like this. Now as I move ahead, if you see, if I move ahead, you are basically moving towards region of higher frequencies. You see the spectrum on the bottom panel shifting outwards. right? For example, now the spectrum is centered at around 200 hertz. As I go ahead, now the spectrum is at around 250 hertz, and I am going ahead. Now the spectrum is now is centered at 300 hertz. So basically what you're doing is that you are analyzing the spectrum or you are analyzing the signal at different time points by only sampling maybe a window. Maybe this window I think was around 0.5 seconds if I remember correctly. No, not 0.5 seconds. The whole is 1 second. So this is 0.05 seconds. So you are basically analyzing the spectral components in every 0.5 seconds of the signal. Am I clear? Am I clear? And this thing, basically in this case, your x-axis represents the frequency component and y-axis represents the time component. And you can see the central portion is the DC part. And of course, you have circular symmetry. You can see that as you go ahead in time, so along the x-axis, your frequency component increases. Can you interpret this figure now? Yes or no? I need some form of feedback, otherwise I cannot go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Madam, you are saying that, right?
Other participants.
Yeah, I'm
please
basically
kindly
for the students.
respond
I'm
to what
asking: is this image clear?
Sir, can you explain that once again?
This
The
one?
final
This figure?
picture.
This figure?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So this is same as this. What we do is that, so you sample the signal with here I am using a rectangular window. Of course, there is a Gabor filter where you use a Gaussian window. I don't know whether we will have time to explain about that, but this is enough. This is also called as short-term Fourier transform. You are taking Fourier transform for smaller intervals. That is why it is called as short-term Fourier transform. So what you do is that you initially sample this region and get the frequency spectrum of that, right? And you already know that this frequency is lower compared to the frequency at 1 second. So this figure, so this is at 0 seconds, the frequency. So you just see one half of the spectrum. So let's say the top half of the spectrum. So this is half, means this is the central line. So this is at lower frequency. And as the time increases, you are going towards higher frequencies. And you can see here from the plot. Clear?
Sir, the graph is actually from 250 to 50 in the descending order, right?
Don't worry about that. So that is in pixel number. So don't worry. I haven't converted that into frequency. So don't look at the axis numbers, because even on the x-axis it is not time. It is basically the pixel number or the index.
Fine.
That this thing. So don't look at that. The numbers. Only look at the image. So as I move in the x direction, in the positive x direction, I am increasing that. I am going towards from 0 to 1. Okay. So this is 0. This is 1. And here center will be 0. And here it will go up to 500 hertz. And here it will go up to minus 500 hertz. Okay.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. So in fact, I have basically zoomed in at the center of that spectrum also. Now, as I move ahead in time, you can see from the signal itself, as I move ahead in time, you can see higher frequency components coming into picture, right? Here it is low frequency components, and as I move ahead, higher frequency components are coming. That is basically shown here. See here. You can see the higher frequencies components, right?
Yeah, got it.
So this picture completely represents the time frequency analysis of the input signal. Clear?
Clear. Got it,
Okay.
sir.
So I'll go ahead a little bit fast. So this is the thing. So this is the time frequency analysis. So here there are two things. The first thing, I am using a big rectangular window. If I am using a big rectangular window, then your time resolution is lower, right? Your size of your rectangular window is large. So that means you are taking large number of time points. So your time resolution is lower, but your frequency resolution is higher. If you look at this thing, it is not smooth at all in the y direction, but x direction is smooth. If I use a smaller rectangular window, then your time resolution is better, but your frequency resolution is lower. So see here, the time resolution is better, but here it is more smooth now. Clear?
Got it, sir. Got it.
So this is your time frequency plot. Now there is a better way to do this thing. So when you use a rectangular window, you can see a lot of side lobes here, right, in the spectrum. When you see the side lobes, of course these frequencies are present. You can see some side lobes here, right? The lobes after the main peak. Okay, so these can be suppressed instead of a rectangular window if I use a Gaussian window. So using a Gaussian window and doing a time frequency analysis, what do you call it as a Gabor transform? This is called as a Gabor transform. So see here, the spectrum is pretty smooth, right? You can see here, there are no side lobes here. Clear? So Gaussian can be easily constructed in your MATLAB. It is nothing but e raised to exp minus a x square. Instead of a, you can put any decay constant there. Okay. And now see the time frequency spectrum. Compare it to this one. So these basically those non-uniformities or the changes are basically due to that side lobes here. So side lobes are in the y direction, because that's the frequency. Now the same here. You see the spectrum that is constructed using your Gabor transform. The time frequency plot constructed using your Gabor window. Instead of a rectangular window, I am using a Gabor window or Gaussian window. Is this thing. So this is again with 0.25 seconds. So your time resolution is lower and frequency resolution is higher. Here it is with 0.1 seconds window. So your frequency resolution is lower, your time resolution is higher. So of course you have to find an optimum between your time resolution and your frequency resolution. That's entirely dependent upon you. What is the time resolution you require in the signal? Or you are more interested in the frequencies or more interested in finding at exact time at which those frequencies occur. So you have to choose a window that basically suits your needs. Is it clear?
Yes, sir, got it.
Okay, what I have to do is that I have to wind up here, because I was thinking like, in fact, I want to show you the codes and some of the other things, but we don't have time for that. So maybe in the next 5 minutes, we can, if you have any queries, we can discuss 5-10 minutes max, because Dignesh is already here. Any questions or discussions?
Sir,
Not-
can
may
you go
not be
to the what you call code? Can you go to the code just a second?
Which one?
For the SFT, if you have the STFT.
Okay, fine. Yeah, here it is.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, let me go to the FFT example. Okay, so you need an yeah, this is the FFT thing. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
I can send you these things, not an issue.
Okay, okay. Just wanted to compare it with whatever we like. Whatever we did, like we did FFT and then we did SFT. So what differences that were made? Just want to compare. that.
FFT and then
SFT, the small short term.
What's the difference you are saying?
Yeah, like how did you manage to take the, like Gaussian is fine, but how did you manage to take each and every time interval separately? That's what
okay,
I'm.
fine. That's fine. So here it is. So what you do is that, so this is your signal. So S is your signal.
Okay.
Then you fix a window width.
Okay.
And then what you do is that, so you can create a rectangular pulse of that window width, and this is where it is centered. T minus T slide.
Okay. Okay.
So T slide goes from 0 to 1 second. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So T minus T slide. So T is your this value. So you have already created your time, no?
Yes.
T is equal to 1 to n. So T minus T slide will center this thing. So for each K, it will be shifted towards the right. If it is T plus T slide, it will be shifted towards the left.
Okay.
That's it. So once it is done, you have a window width, no? And then you multiply it with the signal. Here it is.
Mm-hmm. Fine. Got it.
So then you get your short-term signal. And then you take the Fourier transform of that. That is your short-term Fourier transform.
Okay. So like there is no particular function for it. It's just we are arranging it accordingly. That's the basic idea.
For the short-term Fourier transform.
Yeah, for the short term, for instance, we are not
In
using.
MATLAB, there is a you don't have a particular function. I haven't encountered a particular function for short-term Fourier transform. But if you go to MathWorks, there might be codes or functions, means user-generated functions of course, I can convert this into a user-generated function. Okay, user-defined functions available in MATLAB, MathWorks to download. You can just create an account and download. There are a lot of codes created by others who work in different areas available in MathWorks. You can create an account and then download the codes. That'll be really useful for this thing, your studies and research also.
Okay, fine, sir. Got it.
Okay, any other query? So this is your, let's say if this was your seismological signal, so this is your time frequency of that seismological signal. You can say, okay, after 1 hour, the frequency is, of course, it's going to be the other way around. Anyway, frequency is higher compared to the initial part or something like that. So just looking at the plot, you will be able to predict about the frequencies, or even you can extrapolate and see how it will go and all those things. Of course, you can use machine learning also on these things. Huh? Any other query or question? Of course, if you have any query, you can just write to me. So that is AANAND-PPHY at.
Not, then I think I would like to thank Dr. Arun Anand sir for this lecture. That's it.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll just write my email. So if you have anything, so this is a dash, huh? This is not an underscore, this is a dash, hyphen. So you can write to me if you have any query. So I'll stop.
Yes,
sharing.
it's a nice lecture, Dr. Arun. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ajay. But there is an issue with time limits. Huh?
We'll keep at least one more lecture for you next time.
Yeah, definitely. But what I was thinking is that I'll go from, because I have